"Let me be the one to bear your heir," proposed the alien woman to the human CEO. Maxwell Stone adjusted his platinum cufflinks as the transport pod descended through Zeter's atmosphere. The alien world's twin violet suns cast an ethereal glow across the landscape below, a sprawling metropolis of curved architecture that seemed to defy gravity itself. "Approaching Zeteran Central Business District, sir," the pilot announced. "ETA 3 minutes." Maxwell nodded, his gray-blue eyes fixed on the datapad displaying the final merger proposal. Earthen Enterprises and Zeteran Industries, the two largest corporations in their respective systems, stood at the precipice of creating the most powerful business entity the galaxy had ever seen, and it all hinged on his performance today. "Nervous, sir?" asked Jeffries, his chief financial advisor. Maxwell's lips curved into a confident smile. "Nervous isn't in my vocabulary, Jeffries. I've closed deals in the Martian mines during radiation storms. This is just another day at the office." But it wasn't. Not really. The Zeterans were notoriously difficult negotiators, and their cultural nuances were a minefield of potential diplomatic incidents. One wrong word could send the merger crashing down, along with the hopes of shareholders across 3 star systems. The transport settled onto a crystalline landing pad that shimmered with an inner light. Maxwell straightened his slim black tie and rose to his full 6'3" height, cutting an imposing figure in his tailored suit. At 35, he was the youngest CEO in Earth's corporate history, with a reputation for ruthless efficiency and unparalleled business acumen. "Remember?" Jeffries whispered as the door hissed open. "Their board chair, Elira Thandril, is said to be, unconventional. Don't let her throw you off your game." Maxwell had read the dossier. Elira Thandril, 30 Zeteran cycles, roughly 28 Earth years, had ascended to her position through a combination of brilliant strategic vision and political maneuvering that would make Machiavelli blush. Her file photo showed a striking humanoid with pale green skin and snow-white hair, beautiful by both human and Zeteran standards, though Maxwell had learned long ago that beauty was just another business asset to be leveraged. A delegation awaited them on the platform. Most were typical Zeterans, tall, slender beings with elongated features and varying shades of green skin. But at their center stood Eliara, and Maxwell found himself momentarily taken aback. The dossier hadn't done her justice. Her skin wasn't simply green, but had a subtle luminescence that seemed to pulse with life. Her white hair cascaded down her back in intricate braids, interwoven with what appeared to be living silver threads. But it was her eyes that truly captured his attention. Large, expressive gray orbs with vertical pupils that narrowed slightly as she assessed him. "Maxwell Stone," she said, her voice melodious yet authoritative. "Welcome to Zetar. We've been anticipating your arrival." She extended a slender hand with 6 delicate fingers. Maxwell took it firmly. "The anticipation has been mutual, Chair Thandril. I believe we have much to discuss." "Indeed we do." Her vertical pupils dilated slightly. "But first, a proper welcome. We've prepared a reception that I hope will make you feel at home, despite being 12 light years from Earth." The reception hall was a marvel of alien architecture. Soaring ceilings supported by columns that appeared to be made of flowing liquid metal, floors that adjusted to the walkers' preferred firmness, and ambient lighting that shifted to complement the emotional tenor of conversations. Maxwell navigated the crowd with practiced ease, exchanging pleasantries with Zeteran executives while subtly gathering intelligence. He noted which board members clustered together, who deferred to whom, and most importantly, who kept glancing toward Eliara for approval. "Impressive," came her voice from behind him. "You've been here less than an hour and already you're mapping our corporate politics." Maxwell turned, finding her holding 2 glasses of a shimmering blue liquid. "Is that a compliment or an accusation, Chair Thandril?" "Neither. An observation." She offered him one of the glasses. "Distilled from our native flowering kelp. It's quite safe for human consumption. We've tested it extensively." "Planning for this merger for some time then?" He accepted the drink, their fingers brushing momentarily. "Let's just say I like to be prepared for all possibilities." She raised her glass. "To new partnerships." To mutual benefit, he countered, taking a careful sip. The liquid was surprisingly pleasant, like a cross between fine whiskey and ocean air. Tell me, Mr. Stone. Maxwell, please. Maxwell, she corrected with a slight incline of her head. What drives a man to build an empire spanning 3-star systems by the age of 35? He considered deflecting with a practiced corporate response, but found himself answering honestly. The challenge, the game, proving that I can succeed where others have failed. Not wealth, power. Those are just ways of keeping score. Her lips curved into a smile that revealed teeth just slightly sharper than human norm. How refreshingly honest. Most visitors try to convince us they're motivated by some noble purpose. And what drives you, Alira? If we're being honest. Her vertical pupils expanded slightly. The future of my people. Zetar has limited resources and our population grows. This merger isn't just good business, it's survival. Maxwell hadn't expected such candor. The dossier had painted her as calculating and guarded. Then we have more aligned interests than our shareholders realize. Perhaps. She gestured toward a private alcove away from the crowd. Shall we discuss those interests more directly? The formal negotiations begin tomorrow, but I've found that real progress happens in these quieter moments. As they settled into the alcove's curved seating, Maxwell realized this was no ordinary merger discussion. The game was changing, and he would need to adapt quickly to the new rules, whatever they might be. The private alcove's ambient lighting shifted to a warm amber as Maxwell swirled the blue liquid in his glass. The reception's noise faded to a pleasant murmur beyond their secluded space, creating an illusion of intimacy that Maxwell hadn't anticipated. Your negotiation team seems well prepared, Iliara observed, leaning slightly closer, though I sense some tension between your CFO and legal counsel. Maxwell chuckled. Nothing gets past you, does it? Jeffries and Harrison have different visions for the company's future. It's been challenging. Succession disputes? Her vertical pupils dilated with interest. Something like that. Maxwell took another sip, the kelp liquor warming his chest. Earth's corporate inheritance laws are archaic. Family-founded corporations like mine operate under the Bloodline Succession Act. I'm not familiar with this human law, Iliara said, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass in a hypnotic pattern. Maxwell loosened his tie slightly. It's complicated. My grandfather built Earthen Enterprises from nothing. When he died, the company passed to my father and then to me. But without a direct blood heir, he paused, surprised at his own candor. Something about the alien drink, perhaps, or the way her gray eyes seemed to invite confidence. Without an heir, she prompted, shifting closer until the metallic fabric of her dress caught the light. The company would be carved up by the board and distant relatives. His voice hardened. Everything my family built, dismantled by people who never understood the vision. Ilara's expression softened. That seems unnecessarily cruel. On Zetar, our corporations are living entities, bound to bloodlines but adaptable to circumstances. Earth bureaucracy isn't known for its flexibility, Maxwell said with a wry smile. I've tried everything. Legal challenges, political lobbying. Nothing's worked. And finding a suitable partner? Iliara asked, her voice dropping to a silky tone that sent an unexpected shiver down Maxwell's spine. He laughed, though it sounded hollow even to his own ears. When would I have time? I work 18-hour days, travel constantly between systems. Dating isn't exactly compatible with my lifestyle. Perhaps you've been looking in the wrong system, Iliara suggested, her hand now resting just inches from his on the curved seating. Maxwell became acutely aware of her proximity, the subtle floral scent that seemed to emanate from her skin, the way her white hair caught the ambient light. He'd always prided himself on maintaining professional boundaries. But something about Iliara made those boundaries seem suddenly arbitrary. Human reproduction, she continued, her scientific tone belied by the intensity of her gaze. Is it very different from Zeteran processes? Maxwell nearly choked on his drink. That's not typically first meeting conversation where I'm from. Her laughter was musical. Forgive me, Zeterans are more direct about biological functions. We find human modesty Intriguing. And I find Zeteran directness refreshing, he admitted, surprising himself again. To answer your question, I believe our species are remarkably similar in many ways. Yes, she agreed, her eyes traveling appreciatively over his broad shoulders. I've studied comparative xenobiology. Humans and Zeterans share 89% genetic compatibility, one of the highest cross-species ratings in the galaxy. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. That's specific knowledge. I like to be thorough in my research. Her smile held a hint of mischief, especially regarding potential partners. The implication hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Business partners, Maxwell clarified, though his voice lacked conviction. Of course, Eliara agreed, her fingers now boldly brushing against his. Though on Zeter, we believe the strongest business alliances are those reinforced by personal connections. Maxwell felt a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the alien liquor. And what kind of personal connections would strengthen our particular alliance? Eliara's vertical pupils expanded fully, her eyes now appearing almost human except for their striking gray color. I believe you already know the answer to that, Maxwell Stone. The rational part of his brain, the CEO, the negotiator, the strategist, warned him to pull back, to maintain professional distance. But another part, long suppressed beneath corporate responsibilities and endless meetings, urged him forward. Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere more private, he suggested, his voice rougher than intended. My residence overlooks the Crystal Sea, Alira said, rising gracefully. The view is unforgettable. As they slipped away from the reception, Maxwell knew he was crossing a line. Tomorrow's negotiations would be complicated by whatever happened tonight. Yet as Alira's hand found his, her skin cool and smooth against his palm, he found himself caring less about corporate strategy and more about the mysterious woman leading him through the Zeteran night. In the private transport pod speeding toward her residence, Eliara turned to him, her expression suddenly serious. Maxwell, I should be clear. On Zetar, intimate connections aren't casual matters. They carry meaning, purpose. And what purpose would this serve, Wurpur? He asked, his heart racing despite his attempt at composure. Her answer was both shocking and thrilling in its directness. Perhaps the solution to both our problems. Maxwell awoke to unfamiliar sensations, silken sheets with a subtle electric quality that seemed to hum against his skin, and in the gentle sound of waves crashing somewhere nearby. The events of the previous night flooded back in a rush of vivid memories. Eliara's residence had been breathtaking, a structure of flowing architecture perched on a cliff overlooking the iridescent waters of the Crystal Sea. But the view had quickly become secondary to the connection that sparked between them, a connection that transcended their different worlds and species. Their night together had been both familiar and thrillingly alien. Eliara's skin had emitted a faint luminescence in the darkness, her touch both cool and electric. Despite their biological differences, their bodies had found a perfect harmony, as if designed to complement each other. Maxwell turned to find the space beside him empty, though still warm. The room was bathed in the violet light of Zetar's twin suns, filtering through smart glass windows that adjusted their opacity to maintain optimal comfort. Good morning, came Eliara's melodic voice from the doorway. She stood holding 2 steaming cups, dressed in a flowing silver robe that caught the light with each movement. Her white hair was loose now, cascading over her shoulders like a waterfall of moonlight. Morning, Maxwell replied, struck again by her otherworldly beauty. That was, remarkable, she finished, a smile playing at her lips as she approached. Human stamina is not exaggerated, it seems. Maxwell laughed, accepting the offered cup. I could say the same about Zeteran flexibility. Her eyes sparkled with amusement as she sat beside him. We should discuss what happened. Regrets already? He asked lightly, though a hint of concern crept into his voice. Quite the opposite. She placed her cup on a floating side table and turned to face him fully, her expression suddenly serious. Maxwell, there's something about Zeteran biology you should know. A prickle of unease ran down his spine. That doesn't sound promising. It's not negative, just different. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch sending a pleasant current through his skin. Zeterian reproductive biology is accelerated compared to humans. Our bodies are designed to recognize genetic compatibility instantly. Maxwell's cup froze halfway to his lips. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying that if our genetic profiles are as compatible as I believe they are, conception may have already occurred. The cup nearly slipped from his fingers. That's impossible. It takes humans days, sometimes weeks of trying to. Human biology operates differently, she acknowledged, but Zeteran females can sense conception almost immediately. It's an evolutionary adaptation from our planet's unstable past. Our bodies needed to confirm successful reproduction quickly. Maxwell set his cup down carefully, mind racing. And you think, you and I can't be certain yet, she said, her vertical pupils dilating slightly. But I feel different. There's a resonance within me that wasn't there before. The implications hit Maxwell like a gravity surge. A child, his heir, with an alien woman he just met. It was madness, and yet, this is what you meant last night, he said slowly, when you said this could solve both our problems. She nodded, her expression unreadable. Your succession issue resolved, and for me, she hesitated. What's your stake in this, Eliara? Beyond the merger? She rose and moved to the window, gazing out at the crystal sea. Zeteran birth rates have been declining for generations. Some believe it's environmental, others blame genetic stagnation. A cross-species reproduction has been theorized as a solution, but never successfully implemented. So I'm an experiment? Maxwell couldn't keep the edge from his voice. She turned, her eyes flashing. No, you're a possibility for both our peoples. She moved back to him, kneeling at his side. I didn't plan this, Maxwell, but when you mentioned your need for an heir, it seemed like fate. I don't believe in fate, he said, running a hand through his hair. I believe in calculated risks and strategic planning. This is neither. Isn't it? She challenged. You need an heir. I need to prove human Zeteran reproduction is viable. Our corporations need this merger. The alignment is perfect. Maxwell stood, needing space to think. His mind, trained to analyze business opportunities and threats, struggled to process the personal implications. The board would never accept an alien heir. Are you certain Earth's Interspecies Rights Act of 2157 specifically protects the inheritance rights of hybrid offspring? He shot her a surprised look. You've researched Earth inheritance law? I told you, I like to be thorough. A smile played at her lips. And I've been interested in humans, one human in particular, for longer than you might think. The admission should have alarmed him, but instead Maxwell felt an unexpected warmth. There was something refreshingly direct about her approach, so different from the political maneuvering and hidden agendas he navigated daily on Earth. The negotiations begin in 3 hours, he said, glancing at his watch. How do we handle this? Professionally, she replied without hesitation. What's between us remains private until we're ready to disclose it. The merger proceeds on its own merits. And if you are... He gestured vaguely at her midsection, unable to quite say the word. Pregnant? Her smile was radiant. Then we have approximately 7 Earth months to determine our path forward. Zeteran gestation is slightly accelerated as well. Maxwell ran a hand over his face, feeling the stubble of a day's growth. This is insane, he muttered, but without real conviction. Perhaps, she agreed, moving closer to him again. But sometimes the most profitable ventures are those that initially appear the most risky. She was speaking his language now, the language of business and opportunity. And despite the shock, Maxwell couldn't deny the strange rightness he felt. His entire life had been building toward ensuring his family's legacy continued. That the means might come through an unexpected alliance with a beautiful alien woman seemed almost poetic. I need to shower and prepare for the negotiations, he said finally. Elira nodded, understanding his need for space. The bathroom is through there. I've had appropriate human toiletries delivered. As she turned to leave, Maxwell caught her wrist gently. Eliara, I don't regret last night. Her pupils dilated fully, her smile warming him to his core. Neither do I, Maxwell Stone. Neither do I. The Zetaran Central Business Tower gleamed like a twisted spire of liquid metal in the morning light. Maxwell straightened his tie as he and Eliara rode the gravity lift to the 157th floor, where the merger negotiations would take place. They had arrived separately to maintain professional appearances, meeting coincidentally in the lobby. "Ready?" Eliara asked, her business demeanor firmly in place. She wore a structured suit in deep emerald that complemented her skin tone perfectly, her white hair pulled back in an elegant twist. "Always," Maxwell replied with the confidence that had built his empire. Yet internally, his thoughts kept drifting to their morning revelation. Could she really be carrying his child already? The concept was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. The lift doors parted to reveal a circular negotiation chamber with a panoramic view of the Zetaran capital. Representatives from both corporations were already seated around a horseshoe-shaped table of polished black stone that appeared to float without support. Maxwell nodded to his team, Jeffries, Harrison, and 3 other executives who had traveled from Earth. Across the table sat Eliara's board members, their expressions carefully neutral. "Before we begin," announced Therian Vinar, Eliara's second-in-command, "we have an additional participant joining us today." Maxwell frowned. This wasn't in the protocol they'd established. The doors slid open again, and a tall, imposing Zetaran male entered. His skin was a darker green than Eliara's, almost emerald, and his white hair was cropped short against his skull. His eyes, with their vertical pupils, swept the room with undisguised contempt. "May I present Naren Drell, CEO of Drell Conglomerate," Therian said. Maxwell felt Eliara stiffen beside him, though her face remained impassive. "Forgive my intrusion," Drell said, his voice smooth as polished stone. "As Zetar's second-largest corporation, we have a vested interest in these proceedings." "This is highly irregular," Jeffries protested. The negotiation parameters were clearly established. "Parameters change," Drell interrupted, taking an empty seat without invitation, "especially when new information comes to light." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Maxwell exchanged a quick glance with Eliara, whose vertical pupils had contracted to thin slits, a sign of tension he'd learned. "What information would that be?" Maxwell asked calmly, taking his seat at the head of the Earth delegation. Drell's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Perhaps we should begin with the official agenda before moving to personal matters." The negotiations proceeded with surface-level cordiality, but Maxwell could sense the undercurrent of tension. Drell interjected frequently, questioning terms that had already been tentatively agreed upon, challenging projections and subtly undermining Eliara's authority. During a brief recess, Maxwell found himself alone with Eliara in a private consultation room. "Drell is my former betrothed," she explained without preamble, pacing the small space. "Our families arranged the match when we were young, but I broke it off 3 years ago when I became chair." "I'm guessing he didn't take it well," Maxwell observed. "Zetaran males of his standing aren't accustomed to rejection." Her lips curved in a humorless smile. "His presence here isn't coincidental." "You think he knows about us?" "I think he suspects something. Drell has spies everywhere." She stopped pacing, turning to face him. "Be careful, Maxwell. He's dangerous when his pride is wounded." When they reconvened, the atmosphere had grown even more tense. As they discussed technology-sharing provisions, Drell suddenly changed tactics. "These terms are generous," he said, examining the holographic contract floating above the table. "One might wonder what Earthen Enterprises is receiving in return that isn't documented here." "All terms are transparent, Harrison," Maxwell's legal counsel insisted. "Are they?" Drell's gaze fixed on Eliara. "Perhaps Chair Thandrel could enlighten us about her private meeting with CEO Stone last night." A ripple of murmurs spread around the table. Maxwell kept his expression neutral, though his pulse quickened. "I fail to see how a courtesy reception for our Earth partners is relevant to these negotiations," Eliara replied coolly. "A reception that ended with you and Mr. Stone departing together," Drell pressed, "and not returning to your residence until quite late, according to my sources. Your surveillance of a corporate rival is noted and will be reported to the Regulatory Commission," Eliara countered, her voice like ice. "But since you've raised the issue, yes, Mr. Stone and I continued our discussions privately. The merger of our corporations requires trust and understanding at the highest levels." Drell's eyes narrowed. "And does this trust and understanding include your personal agenda regarding cross-species breeding experiments?" The room fell silent. Maxwell saw Jeffries and Harrison exchange alarmed glances. "What exactly are you implying, Mr. Drell?" Maxwell asked, his voice dangerously calm. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." Drell activated his personal data pad, projecting a series of documents into the air. "Chair Thandril has been researching human Zeteran genetic compatibility for years. She has funded secret studies on hybrid offspring potential, and now conveniently, she finds herself negotiating with an unmarried human CEO who needs an heir." Maxwell felt a cold fury building inside him, not for the accusation itself, which was essentially true, but for the way Drell was attempting to weaponize something that, in the few hours since he'd learned of it, had begun to feel precious to him. "Your point, Mr. Drell?" Elira asked, her composure remarkable. "My point is that this merger isn't about business at all. It's about your obsession with proving your theories correct, regardless of the contamination to our species." "Contamination?" Maxwell repeated, unable to keep the edge from his voice. "A poor choice of words," Drell backpedaled slightly, "but the concern stands. Is Chair Thandril pursuing this merger for Zeteron Industries, or for her personal biological agenda?" Maxwell stood slowly, commanding the attention of everyone in the room through sheer presence. In that moment, he wasn't just a CEO, he was the embodiment of human determination and strength. "Mr. Drell," he said, his voice resonating with authority, "I came to Zetar to negotiate a merger that would benefit both our worlds. Chair Thandril's research into cross-species compatibility shows foresight, not duplicity. The future of business is interplanetary, and the future of our species may well be the same." He looked around the table, meeting each person's gaze. "If anyone here objects to that vision, perhaps they shouldn't be part of shaping it." The negotiations adjourned in tense silence. Maxwell watched as Drell swept from the room, his entourage of aides scurrying behind him like remoras trailing a predator. The Earth team huddled together, whispering urgently, while Elira conferred with her board members in Rapid Zeteron. "We need to talk," Jeffries muttered to Maxwell. "Privately." "Later," Maxwell replied, his attention fixed on Elira. Something in her posture, a subtle rigidity, concerned him. "I need to handle something first." He approached her as the room cleared, maintaining a professional distance. "Chair Thandril, might I have a word about the resource-sharing provisions?" She nodded, understanding the pretext. "Of course. My office would be suitable." They walked in silence through the corridors of the tower, aware of watching eyes. Only when the door to her private office sealed shut did Eliara's composure crack. "That snake," she hissed, pacing the room. "He's been planning this ambush for months." "Is what he said true? About your research?" She paused, meeting his gaze directly. "Yes, I've been studying human Zeteran compatibility for years. It's my life's work alongside my corporate duties." "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me that my interest in you wasn't just about the merger?" Her eyes softened. "I wanted you to know me first, not my research." Maxwell absorbed this, finding he wasn't actually angry, just concerned about what else he might not know. "What's Drell's real game here? This feels like more than a jilted lover's revenge." Elira sank into a chair, suddenly looking weary. "It is, Drell leads the Purity Coalition, a powerful faction of Zeteron traditionalists who believe our species should remain genetically isolated. They see interspecies relationships as contamination." "Charming folks, King Mawrabiuri," Maxwell remarked dryly. "They're dangerous, Maxwell. More dangerous than I initially told you." She activated her desk console, bringing up security footage. 3 of our research facilities have reported sabotage attempts in the past 12 hours. The pattern suggests coordinated attacks. Maxwell studied the footage with growing concern. "They're moving against the merger?" "Against us," she corrected. "The merger is just business. But what we represent, The possibility of a future where humans and Zetarans could truly unite, that terrifies them. A soft chime interrupted them. Eliara checked her communicator and frowned. Drell is requesting a private meeting with you without me. Interesting timing. Don't go, she said immediately. It's a trap. Maxwell considered this. Or an opportunity to learn what he's really after. Maxwell, I've dealt with corporate sharks my entire career, he assured her. I'll hear him out, but I won't trust a word he says. The meeting was set for a neutral location, a private dining room in the city's most exclusive restaurant. Maxwell arrived deliberately late, a power move he'd perfected in countless negotiations. Drell sat alone at a table carved from what appeared to be a single massive gemstone, sipping a dark liquid from a glass that changed colors with the temperature of its contents. Mr. Stone, he greeted, not rising. Thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries, Maxwell replied, taking a seat. What do you want? Drell's lips curved in what might have been respect. Humans. So refreshingly direct. He set down his glass. I want to save you from making a catastrophic mistake. The merger? Eliara Thandril. Drell slid a data crystal across the table. Everything you need to know is here. Maxwell made no move to take it. I prefer verbal summaries. Very well. Drell leaned forward. Eliara carries a genetic mutation. It's why our betrothal was terminated, not by her choice, as she likely told you, but by my family when the screening revealed the truth. Maxwell kept his expression neutral, though his mind raced. What mutation? A hereditary condition that causes severe birth defects. Any offspring she produces will be, monstrous. Drell's face twisted with disgust. Her research isn't about advancing our species. It's a desperate attempt to find a genetic workaround using human DNA. And you're telling me this out of the goodness of your heart? I'm telling you because a failed hybrid pregnancy would destabilize both our corporations when it becomes public. The merger would collapse. Drell pushed the crystal closer. The medical records are here, verified by 3 independent genetic institutes. Maxwell finally picked up the crystal, pocketing it without comment. One more thing, Drell added as Maxwell stood to leave. The Purity Coalition has significant influence with the Planetary Council. If this merger proceeds, we will ensure it faces regulatory hurdles that will take decades to overcome. Is that a threat? A reality. Drell's vertical pupils contracted to thin lines. Zetarans have maintained genetic purity for 10,000 years. We will not allow one female's desperation to contaminate our bloodlines. Maxwell leaned down, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Here's another reality, Drell. Humans don't respond well to threats. We tend to dig in our heels and fight harder. He straightened. Thank you for the information. I'll give it all the consideration it deserves. He left Drell sitting alone, the alien's face a mask of barely controlled fury. Back at Eliara's residence, Maxwell found her in her study, surrounded by security feeds and emergency reports. 2 more facilities hit, she said without looking up. They're escalating. Maxwell placed the data crystal on her desk. Drell gave me this. Claims it contains your medical records showing a genetic mutation that causes birth defects. Her head snapped up, eyes widening. That lying? She caught herself taking a deep breath. It's partially true. I do carry a genetic marker, but it's not what he described. Tell me. It's a mutation that affects reproductive compatibility with other Zetarans, she explained, her voice tight. My eggs reject Zetaran sperm. It's why my family arranged my betrothal to Drell. His lineage carries a complementary mutation that would have overcome the issue. So you can't have children with Zetarans, Maxwell said slowly, but potentially could with humans. Yes, her eyes searched his. That's what my research indicated. Human genetic structure interfaces differently with the mutation. But I never lied about wanting you, Maxwell. The compatibility was a blessing, not my primary motivation. He believed her, he realized. Despite the complications, despite having known her for barely 2 days, he trusted her in a way he'd never trusted anyone in his cutthroat business world. Drell also mentioned the Purity Coalition has influence with the Planetary Council. They're planning to block the merger with regulatory hurdles. Eliara's expression hardened. Then we need to move faster than they can. The merger documents are ready. We just need signatures." "And us?" Maxwell asked, the question encompassing far more than business. Her hand moved unconsciously to her abdomen. "I'll know for certain by morning if conception occurred. Zeteran physiology is very clear about these things." Maxwell stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Whatever Drell tries, whatever this coalition threatens, I'm not backing down. Not from the merger, and not from you." Her luminescent skin seemed to glow brighter at his words, her vertical pupils dilating fully. "You continue to surprise me, Maxwell Stone." "Get used to it," he murmured, drawing her into his arms. "Humans are full of surprises." Dawn broke over the crystal sea, bathing Alira's bedroom in violet light. Maxwell awoke to find her sitting by the window, a small medical device in her hand, her expression unreadable. "Alira?" he questioned softly, rising from the bed. She turned to him, her vertical pupils fully dilated, a smile slowly spreading across her face. "It's confirmed. I'm carrying your child." The words hung in the air between them, momentous and surreal. Maxwell crossed the room and knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "The genetic binding is stable," she replied, showing him the device's readout, a complex pattern of interlocking DNA strands, human and Zeteran, forming something entirely new. "Yeah, our child will be the first of its kind, a perfect hybrid." Maxwell felt a surge of primitive pride and protectiveness, unlike anything he'd experienced in his corporate conquest. This wasn't about succession plans or bloodline laws anymore. It was about the woman before him and the miracle they'd created together. "We need to accelerate the merger signing," he said, his CEO mind already calculating moves and countermoves, before Drell and his coalition can interfere further. Alira nodded, but before she could respond, both their communicators chimed simultaneously with urgent alerts. "It's Jeffries on," Maxwell frowned, scanning the message. "He's demanding an emergency meeting with the entire Earth team. Says it's non-negotiable. And I have reports of explosions at our primary manufacturing facility," Alira said grimly. "The Purity Coalition is making its move." They dressed quickly, the intimate joy of moments before replaced by strategic focus. As they prepared to part ways, Alira to her security center, Maxwell to meet his team, she caught his arm. "Maxwell, there's something you should know. In Zeteran culture, a child conceived binds the parents in ways your people might not understand. We are now connected by more than choice. We are family by blood and law. On Earth, we call that marriage," he said with a half smile. "A simplification, but close enough." She pressed her forehead briefly to his, a Zeteran gesture of deep affection. "Be careful with your team. Humans can be protective of their own." The Earth delegation had commandeered a conference room in their hotel. When Maxwell entered, the tension was palpable. Jeffries paced nervously while Harrison and the others sat in grim silence. "What's the emergency?" Maxwell asked, deliberately casual. "This is..." Jeffries thrust a data pad toward him. On the screen was a lurid headline from an Earth tabloid. "Stone seduced. CEO falls for alien breeding scheme." Below it was a grainy surveillance image of Maxwell and Alira entering her residence together. "It gets worse," Harrison added, queuing up a video. Drell's face appeared, speaking directly to Earth media. "We have reason to believe Maxwell Stone has been compromised by Zeteran biological manipulation. Chair Thandril has a documented history of genetic experimentation and has likely used pheromone technology to influence Mr. Stone into a reproductive arrangement that would give her control of Earth and Enterprises." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "That's absurd." "Is it?" Jeffries challenged. "You've been acting strange since we arrived, making unilateral decisions, defending her research publicly. Now we find out she's been studying human genetics for years before you even met." "We've arranged an extraction," Harrison said quietly. "The Artemis is standing by in orbit. We can have you back on Earth in 3 days, where proper medical screening can determine if you've been influenced." Maxwell stared at his team, men and women he'd worked with for years, who now looked at him with a mixture of concern and suspicion. "I haven't been manipulated," he said firmly, "and I'm not leaving." "Max, be reasonable," Jeffries pleaded. "Even if you're thinking clearly, the board is in panic. Stocks are plummeting. We need to get you home to address this directly." Maxwell's communicator chimed again, Ilyara with worse news. He read the message and felt cold fury building inside him. Drell has moved beyond media manipulation, he told his team. The Purity Coalition just bombed 3 Zeteran facilities. People are dead. All the more reason to extract you, Harrison insisted. This is becoming a planetary conflict. No, Maxwell's voice cut like steel. This is becoming personal. Drell isn't just attacking the merger, he's attacking my family. Family? Jeffries repeated incredulously. You've known this woman for 3 days. And she's carrying my child, Maxwell stated flatly. The room fell silent. Jeffries sank into a chair, speechless for perhaps the first time in his career. You got her pregnant? Harrison finally managed. Is that even possible? Evidently, Maxwell replied dryly. And before you ask, yes, I'm certain it's mine. Yes, I'm certain I wasn't coerced. And yes, I'm fully committed to both Ilyara and our child. He straightened his tie, a habitual gesture that now seemed to connect his corporate self with this new, fiercely protective version. Now, we have 2 immediate problems to solve. First, Drell's media campaign against me. Second, the physical attacks on Zeteran facilities. 3 problems, came a new voice from the doorway. Ilyara stood there, her usual composure fractured by obvious distress. No. The Planetary Council has just issued an emergency injunction against the merger, citing biological security concerns. Maxwell crossed to her side immediately. Are you all right? I'm fine, she assured him, though her hand rested protectively over her abdomen. But we're running out of options. The Council has frozen all Zeteran Industries assets pending investigation. Jeffries and Harrison exchanged looks, their earlier suspicion giving way to grudging respect for the alien woman's obvious distress. What do you need from us? Jeffries asked, surprising everyone. Maxwell shot his CFO a grateful look. We need to counter Drell's narrative, not just deny it, obliterate it. A joint broadcast, Ilyara suggested, to both worlds simultaneously. The truth directly from us. That might address the PR crisis, Harrison noted, but what about the Council injunction and the attacks? Maxwell's eyes narrowed with determination. For that, we need to take the fight directly to Drell, and I think I know exactly how to do it. He turned to Ilyara, his expression softening. But it's risky, and it puts you, both of you, in the crosshairs. She straightened, her green skin luminescent with resolve. My people have a saying, the rarest metals are forged in the hottest fires. I'm not afraid of Drell or his coalition. Good, Maxwell nodded, because what I'm proposing will either save everything we built or burn it all to the ground. The broadcast center of Zeteran Central Communications hummed with activity as technicians prepared for the unprecedented dual-planet transmission. Maxwell adjusted his top while Ilyara's aide applied a final touch to her subtle makeup in enhancing the luminescent quality of her green skin. Nervous? Maxwell asked, taking her hand. Terrified, she admitted with a smile that belied her words, but ready. Their plan was audacious, a direct address to both Earth and Zeter, followed by an appearance at the Emergency Planetary Council session, where Drell would be pushing for permanent prohibition of the merger. The timing was precise, designed to catch their opponent off guard. Transmission begins in 30 seconds, announced the director. Maxwell squeezed Ilyara's hand. Remember, just speak from the heart. A very human approach, she teased, her vertical pupils dilating with affection. 5, 4, 3... The director counted down silently with his fingers for the final numbers. The red light illuminated, and billions of viewers across 2 worlds saw Maxwell Stone and Ilyara Thandrel sitting side by side. The corporate logos of their respective companies displayed discreetly behind them. People of Earth and Zetar, Maxwell began, his voice steady and authoritative. I'm Maxwell Stone, CEO of Earth and Enterprises. Recent reports have suggested that I've been manipulated or coerced during merger negotiations with Zeteran Industries. These allegations are categorically false. Ilyara continued seamlessly. I am Chair Thandrel of Zeteran Industries. Our proposed merger has faced opposition from those who fear change and progress. But fear has never built the future. Courage and vision have. What began as a business arrangement has become something more profound, Maxwell said, his gaze shifting briefly to Ilyara. Chair Thandril and I have formed a personal bond that transcends our corporate responsibilities. In the spirit of complete transparency, Eliara added, we wish to announce that I am carrying Maxwell Stone's child, the first human Zeteran hybrid conceived naturally in galactic history. The statement hung in the air, bold and unapologetic. This child represents not just our personal future, Maxwell continued, but a potential new chapter for both our species. The genetic compatibility between humans and Zeterans opens possibilities previously unexplored. Those who oppose our union claim to protect Zeteran purity, Eliara said, her voice hardening slightly. But isolation leads to stagnation. Evolution requires diversity. We invite you to judge us not by fear or prejudice, Maxwell concluded, but by our actions and our vision for a shared future. Thank you. The transmission ended and the director gave them a thumbs up. Perfectly timed. The council session begins in 20 minutes. Any response yet? Eliara asked her communications officer. Early data shows overwhelmingly positive reaction from Earth markets. Your stock is surging, Mr. Stone. Zeteran response is more divided, but trending positive among younger demographics. Maxwell nodded, satisfied with the initial results. And Drell? No public response yet, but our intelligence suggests he's furious. Security has been increased at the council chambers. They were preparing to depart when Eliara's security chief burst into the room, his face ashen. Chair Thandril, we have an emergency. Your private residence has been breached. The intruders disabled the security systems using internal access codes. Drell, she whispered, her hand instinctively moving to her abdomen. What would he want from your home? Maxwell asked, already calculating. Her eyes widened in horror. My research data, including the complete genetic profile of our child, in the wrong hands. She didn't need to finish. If Drell obtained proof of viable human Zeteran hybridization, he could manipulate it to support his claims of contamination or, worse, develop countermeasures to prevent such pregnancies in the future. We need to split up, Maxwell decided instantly. You go to the council with Jeffries and my security team. I'll retrieve the data. It's too dangerous, she protested. Drell's people will be expecting resistance. Maxwell's smile held a predatory edge. What they won't be expecting is human ingenuity. Harrison, I need your tactical experience. His legal counsel, a former military officer, stepped forward. Whatever you need, sir. And I'll need that extraction ship after all, Maxwell added to Jeffries. Just not for the purpose you intended. 20 minutes later, Maxwell and a small team approached Eliara's cliffside residence from the sea below. An approach Zeteran security protocols rarely accounted for. Humans' natural affinity for water navigation gave them an advantage that the land-preferring Zeterans often overlooked. Thermal scans show 4 intruders in sight, Harrison reported, checking his tactical display. They're concentrated in the East Wing, likely the research lab. Remember, we need them alive, Maxwell instructed, and the data intact. They scaled the cliff with practiced efficiency, Maxwell leading, despite his team's protests. He'd spent his youth climbing Earth's most challenging mountains before corporate life claimed him, a skill set Drell would never have anticipated from a CEO. The infiltration went flawlessly until they reached the lab's antechamber. As Maxwell prepared to override the door controls, a familiar voice came through his communicator. Maxwell, Eliara's urgent whisper. Drell never showed at the council. It's a trap. The warning came too late. The door slid open to reveal not Drell's men, but Drell himself, holding a weapon to the head of a bound, and gagged Eliara. Mr. Stone, he greeted coldly. How predictable that a human would attempt a heroic rescue. Maxwell assessed the situation with the same cool calculation he applied to hostile takeovers. Harrison and the team were positioned outside, undetected. Eliara's eyes communicated silent fury rather than fear. Let her go, Drell. This is between you and me. On the contrary, Drell replied. This is about the future of an entire species. Your kind has always been invasive, spreading across planets, imposing your genetics wherever you go. But Zetar will not be contaminated. You mean evolved, Maxwell corrected. That's what terrifies you, isn't it? Not that we'll damage your species, but that will improve it. Drell's vertical pupils contracted to razor-thin lines. Humanity's arrogance is legendary. So is our determination, Maxwell replied, subtly shifting his weight, and our unpredictability. With a movement too quick for Drell to track, Maxwell activated the emergency sprinkler system, another human-designed safety feature Eliara had installed at his suggestion. As water cascaded down, Eliara reacted instantly, using the momentary distraction to drive her elbow into Drell's abdomen. The next moments were chaos, Harrison's team breaching the room, Drell's backup emerging from hidden positions, and Maxwell launching himself at Drell with single-minded purpose. They crashed to the floor, the alien's superior strength nearly overwhelming Maxwell until he employed a wrestling move no Zeteran would recognize. Drell found himself immobilized, Maxwell's forearm pressed against his throat. "Yield!" Maxwell commanded. Drell's eyes burned with hatred. "Never to a human." "Then yield to the future," came Eliara's voice as she approached, now freed and holding a data crystal. "Your own research confirms it, Neuron. I found your hidden studies. Our species is facing genetic collapse within 7 generations without diversification." Drell's struggle ceased, his expression shifting from rage to defeat. "How did you—" "Access codes work both ways," she said simply. "Your opposition was never about purity. It was about control, your control." With Drell and his conspirators detained by Zeteran authorities, the emergency council session reconvened with a dramatically different tone. The broadcast had shifted public opinion, and Eliara's revelation of Drell's suppressed research, showing the necessity of genetic diversification for Zeteran survival, transformed the narrative entirely. The merger was approved unanimously with an additional provision establishing a joint human-Zeteran genetic research institute headed by Eliara. 6 months later, Maxwell stood at the window of their new home overlooking both the Crystal Sea and the sprawling headquarters of Stone Thandrel Enterprises. Behind him, Eliara rested on a lounging couch, her pregnancy now visibly advanced, her luminescent skin glowing with health. "The final paperwork came through today," he said, turning to her with a smile. "Earth's Bloodline Succession Act has been formally amended to recognize hybrid offspring as legal heirs. And the Zeteran Genetic Diversity Initiative has exceeded all participation projections," she added, her hand caressing her rounded abdomen. 17 human Zeteran couples have registered for compatibility testing this month alone." Maxwell crossed to her side, kneeling to place his hand beside hers. "Feeling any movement today?" "Constantly," she laughed. "Your son has your restless energy." "And hopefully your patience," he replied, leaning in to kiss her. Their lips had barely touched when the baby delivered a particularly vigorous kick that they both felt. They broke apart, laughing. "Already asserting himself," Eliara observed. "A true stone." "And a Thandrel," Maxwell added. "The perfect merger." As the twin suns of Zeter set over the Crystal Sea, casting the room in violet and gold, Maxwell reflected on the strange path that had led him here. He had come to Zeter seeking a business alliance and found instead a family, a future, and a love that transcended worlds. In the end, it wasn't corporate strategy or political maneuvering that had secured his legacy. It was the simple human capacity for connection, for adaptation, and for love. Perhaps that was humanity's true strength all along.